Look, I'm okay with death threats because I've been issuing them to myself for years, so, you know, it's fine. I'm not fazed. I went to a state school in the 70s in Musselburgh, so, you know, bring it on. I don't have an extreme view. I have to warn you about that. You'll be disappointed by this. So, right, basically, MPs have recommended that trans people should be able to self-declare their legal gender. That's what it's all about. Now, you're probably aware that the 2004 Gender Recognition Act was passed in this country, making us the first country to legally recognise trans people as opposite sex without medical treatment, OK? So now we're going a stage further, perhaps. There has been some concerns, to put it lightly, from women's rights campaigners, warning that this could jeopardise single-sex spaces which are protected under law. So, essentially, trans people will be able to self-declare their legal gender. There's been massive warnings about it, but this new report from the Women and Equalities Committee has found that the process by which people can legally transition is unfair and overly medicalised. Now, I would agree with that. Let's just remind ourselves, for anyone goes running off with a baton, that that trans people have been treated very badly for years. I mean, the fact that they had to go, one had to go to a panel of doctors and lawyers. I mean, do we trust those people? Rarely. Doctors and lawyers, and sort of put their case forward, proved that they'd lived for 2 years in another sex. And that was quite humiliating, and is a humiliating and judgmental process. So now
Josh,
we would say that it allows these people the freedom to self-declare.
Yeah, I mean,
rope is yours, Josh.
Well, it's not that...
Here you go.
Thank you. Look, yes, the past system wasn't perfect and needs working, but there are issues about being able to self-declare your sex, and there's a real problem with this kind of defining sex and defining gender and how they combine together, and this report is wishy-washy at best. It was rushed out before Christmas. It needed longer, more consulting to go on. I mean, they call for, let's just take women's sport, right? It says, yes, women's sport needs to be protected because there is a massive issue of people who later change sex or gender. If they went through male puberty, they have massive physical advantages, and that's a biological fact. So they say, yes, women's sports need to be protected, but then it also says it calls for inclusion of trans people into sport, which is also fair. Trans people, of course, they should be able to play sport. The problem is that trans activists, for them, that means male-bodied people being in women's sports.
So they haven't actually league.
When it's things like football, when it's weightlifting, when it's swimming, what's happening in America, there are massive advantages to having gone through male puberty, and this report does nothing to actually deal with any of this stuff. And it uses phrases like, gender assigned at birth, sex assigned at birth. Sex is not assigned at birth. It is observed. It is a biological reality. So if even putting a phrase like that just shows you how bad this report is, if they're using phrases like assigned at birth, they obviously don't get the issues here.
I remember back in the noughties, self-certified mortgages. So people could declare how much they earn rather than have to prove how much they earn. And
that's how we got houses, didn't you?
That's how you got houses. And then it led to the most colossal housing bubble, and it was all sorts of abuse. So,
so trans people are going to be taking out these mortgages, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare.
And houses are going to get even dearer.
That reminds me of all the poor guys who had HIV statuses years ago. They weren't given mortgages. They weren't allowed. And many of these guys now are older men and fail to get, have the nice little nest egg that lots of other people do have. So, there's been great unfairness. Listen, I just want to go on the record and say, I can just say very quickly that I agree with that about sport. I do think that there is an advantage being male-bodied.
That's really dodgy.
I also feel that there is, ironically, a real fluidity to this argument, and the extremism that we all fear getting caught up in seems to relate more with trans women, doesn't it? We talked, where are the trans men? You don't...
But that is a valid point. But okay, sorry. I mean, I could talk about this issue a lot because it's something I feel.
And I don't identify as a woman either.
I want to hear your thoughts, Josh.
Let's come back for the hour special.
Body positivity.